for another creepy video. I'm here again to record another scary story that I found on Reddit, because why not? Anyways, I'm here to read another story for you. I will link it in the description below so that you guys can check it out if you want. But without further ado, let's get right into the story. So this one is called 2 Facts You Should Probably Know. Here are 2 facts you should probably know. Fact the first. When a human being is driven into a corner, you should never underestimate the level of stupid and dangerous they will resort to in order to escape. Fact the second. If a deal seems too good to be true, it is. Normally I wouldn't be the kind of guy you should be taking advice from. If I wrote an autobiography, it'd be called Jesus Wept. But in this very specific instance, I have some very valuable experience. It started, as most tragic stories tend to, with a series of short-sighted mistakes. About a decade or so back, I was a few years out of college and trying to build a life for myself. I was single, educated, and driven. All the qualities someone needs to succeed in life. Well, not the single part, but you get the idea. I had prospects, some real potential, but like Oscar Wilde once said, I can resist anything except temptation. Yeah, I was an English major. I didn't get hooked on meth or porn or anything like that. No, my vice was the thrill of chance. Gambling was the greatest rush I'd ever experienced. Just giving up control, letting the gods of probability and randomness decide your fate. I got hooked, kept going to those damn casinos night after night. Looking back, I was naive. I was foolish. It'd take an idiot, blinded by a lust of sensation, to not realize another crucial fact. The house always, I repeat, always wins. To make a long, painful story short, at the tender age of 24, the local pit bosses had taken me for all I was worth, and then some. As a result, I was indebted to some unsavory characters, who were not all that keen on giving me some leeway on the money I owed them. I managed to pull together just shy of $100 in a week doing odd jobs, but that was a fraction of what I was in for. At the time, it seemed like a better idea just to piss away what money I had at the local bar instead of carrying on my sad little existence in futility. So that's exactly what I did, and by virtue of a few gallons of the cheapest Sprites you can possibly imagine, I can't remember a great deal of what happened after that. The next thing I know, I'm waking up in a puddle behind the bar, having been turfed out for making an ass of myself. The electric buzz of the neon sign above my head felt like I was taking a power drill to the frontal lobe, while the cold, filthy water below my face helped to sober me up a smidgen. Just enough to make me aware. It was right then, in my lowest possible moment, that I met him. "Hey there, buddy," he said, his voice pleasantly cheerful and melodic. "You look like you need a helping hand. Thankfully, I've got 2. There was a gentle tug on both my shoulders, pulling me upright. He leaned me against the wall. I could finally take a better look at him. To begin, I wondered if I was hallucinating. He seemed so strange, so out of place. My good Samaritan was about 6.5 feet tall, but he was built like a pack of uncooked spaghetti. A long, lean string bean of a man. That being said, the black and white pinstripe suit he was wearing still somehow managed to be form-fitting, like it was just painted directly onto his featureless body. Above his collar, fastened to a top button, and held in place by a large and ugly bow tie, sat a pale, grinning head with black hair parted in the middle. Truth be told, my initial thought after properly taking in the sight of him was as follows. Holy shit, I died in that puddle, and this is Death himself coming to collect my pathetic soul. Sadly, that was not the case. I was, in fact, still alive. "There we are, pal, that's a lot better, isn't it?" he said, kneeling down on his long, rail-thin legs to look me in the eye. "We'll have you feeling like $1,000,000 in no time. Never fear." Well, back then I just assumed that it was my drunken mind playing tricks on me. I remember his eyes seeming strangely yellowish. They had a kind of jawed-ice sheen to them, like scalera and iris just melted together into a single formless eye. Eyes like goddamn egg yolk. "It's always such a shame to catch folks in a pickle, such a shame," he said largely to himself, I think. "Whatever happened to helping people out, you know? It's a good feeling." "Who are you?" I managed to choke out. The kind stranger smiled and turned his sulphuric eyes towards me. "You're asking the wrong person there, amigo. I'd tell you if I knew. Honest," he replied with a laugh. "What's your name, though?" "Nate," I said, wondering if I was about to vomit or not. "Nate Wilson." "Oh my God, that's such an awesome name," the stranger said, as a sudden explosion of interest on his face told me that he wasn't faking his misplaced enthusiasm. "Nate Wilson. It has a ring to it, don't you think? God, what a great name. You're a lucky guy, Nate. Lucky to have such a great name." Thanks, I guess?" There was a long awkward silence after that. I sure as hell didn't know what to say, and the stranger seemed more content just to stand there and stare at me, grinning like a freak. It felt like it was my responsibility to break the irritating silence. "Look, I really appreciate you helping me, buddy," I began. "Wait, you consider us buddies?" he asked. His tone was at that stage ambiguous. "I mean, you saved me from breathing alley water, so I guess so, yeah." This might seem hard to believe, because I definitely didn't believe it at the time, but the stranger literally jumped up into the air and whooped loudly. A grown man, behind a dive bar, doing that. It was like something out of a strange dream that your one boring friend always wanted to tell you about. "This is fantastic," he said, grinning ear to ear like he'd just won the fucking lottery. "It's so wonderful to make new friends." He extended a spindly arm towards me, his hand open, and his spidery fingers outstretched. "Put her here, friendo," he said. "And because that night wasn't weird enough already, you better believe me I did." "That's what I'm talking about," he said with another childish cackle, pulling me to my feet with disarming levels of strength. "Through the power of friendship, anything is possible." Sure, he may have spoken like his only experience with the outside world was watching Saturday morning cartoons, but he seemed innocent enough. A binging weirdo, just trying to help people along his way. Though, I must admit, the fact he was reluctant to tell me his name was somewhat of a red flag to me. "Now, I'm going to be completely honest with you, Nate." His amber gaze turned downwards in what might have been embarrassment. "There was a reason I followed you out here. It wasn't just a stroke of good luck." My heart immediately sank. I knew this was too good to be true. This was when he stabbed me, cut me up, wore my skin as a suit, and turned the rest of me into a makeshift lasagna. No one was ever that happy at that hour of the night if they had all their psychological ducks in a row. "Well, if you're being honest," I say, swaying on my feet, still too drunken to defend myself, "would that reason happen to be my murder?" He seemed shocked at first, but then began to laugh. "Do you think a murderer would be this friendly?" he asked. "Molestation, then?" "Jesus, no way, Nate. You're a good-looking guy, but don't get me wrong, you're not really my type." "Then what does a guy like you have to do with a guy like me?" I asked, the needle of my internal emotional scale creeping from curious to irritated. "Well," he paused again, as though searching for the proper words. He was looking at everything but me. "The bar," he finally said. "How much of what happened in there do you remember?" "Somewhere in the margin of nothing, I think," I said, now leaning against the wall for support. "You were talking to the bartender. Loudly," he said, bouncing up and down on the balls of his feet. "I wasn't eavesdropping. Not at all. I just happened to overhear. You were talking about some kind of money troubles?" I'd almost forgotten about them myself, but the second he said it, all the memories came barreling back to me like some nauseating tidal wave. I'd ranted and raved, screamed at the top of my lungs, debt, debt, debt. I got belligerent when I felt as they weren't showing me enough sympathy, and when I got belligerent, I was rightly thrown out on my inebriated ass. "Oh, don't worry about those," I said, my cheeks reddening with shame. "That's not your problem. I'll deal with it." "But Nate, you didn't sound like you can deal with it." "What the hell is it to you?" I snapped back. The stranger stopped talking and began reaching into his jacket. I suddenly got a flash of paranoia that he worked for one of the casinos, and he was going to put a bullet in between my eyes. "You're my best friend, Nate," he said. And friends are meant to help each other out of sticky situations, aren't they? He produced a stack of bills from the pocket inside his suit and passed it over to me. "Will this be enough?" he asked. It was at this point that I was most open to the idea of this being some crazy dream. With the ferocity of a madman, I quietly counted the money this total stranger, calling me his best friend, had handed to me. 20 fucking grand. It could bail me out, and then some. "Holy shit," I said, though I can't remember if it was out loud or in my head. I can't possibly accept this." "Please do," he said with another ear-to-ear grin. "You need it an awful lot more than I do." Sober me might have been too proud to indulge him, but, funnily enough, drunk me had far more realistic take on my level of desperation. I was a desperate man, trapped in a corner. Fact the first. When a human being is being driven into a corner, you should never underestimate the level of stupidity and danger they will resort to in order to escape. "But why?" was the only question I could summon. He smiled and shrugged. "Because I like you," he said, "and I like helping people. But you've only just met me. So what? A friend is a friend is a friend. Why overthink it?" I collapsed back against the wall, holding the stranger's 20 grand. It was a way out of my dire situation. "I'll pay you back, every penny, with fucking interest, I swear to God," I said. The stranger laughed. "No need. I've got no shortage of money. Just take it and bail yourself out, okay? Then promise me you'll stop gambling." There were big, swollen tears running down my burning cheeks. The stranger's kindness was baffling, but it was the most beautiful thing I'd ever experienced. He was a true saint in flesh and blood. "I'll never gamble another penny," I said. Without another word, I lunged forward and hugged him. A long, warm, tight embrace. By the end, I could feel his emaciated limbs wrap around my back. "Thank you so much," I whispered, my tears dripping onto my shoulders of his suit. What are friends for, right? When I finally pried myself off him, I just couldn't stop laughing. It was nerves, probably. The stranger watched me, a kind of eccentric joy burning in his big yellow eyes. He just seemed to be observing me. "Oh, one more thing," he said, reaching into his jacket. "A little something I wrote up in the bar, just to help you out." He passed me a piece of paper, folded into the size of a pamphlet. I didn't even think to check it at the time. I just stuffed it into the pocket of my filthy coat and carried on, thanking him. I needed that money. Lord knows I did. But I couldn't take it without giving him something in return.
Hi, it's future Kimberly here. I'm just editing this video actually, and I know I'm in a completely different place because that video was recorded forever ago. I just wanted to say that I decided to split this story up into 2 parts because it was getting really long when I was editing and stuff. So yes, I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you next week for the second half of this video. Bye guys.